Welcome back to What's Your Story, Season 2, Episode 7. I'm Leilani Langdon, your host, and this is a space where we get together to share the journeys of others so that you, the listener, can be inspired to know, own, and share your story. I'm so excited to be here tonight, especially because we get to have one of our very own What's Your Story community members share their story tonight, and I could not be more excited. But before we do that, those of you who are tuning in, I want to know where you're watching from. Let us know. Say hi. If you are part of the community and you are not new to What's Your Story, go ahead and send me your hellos. I want to connect with you tonight. I just want to remind you that our chat is a judgment-free zone. It is a space where we get to encourage one another. We get to support one another. We get to be inspired together. And so go ahead and drop your hellos. Let me know you are watching tonight. Now, I just wanted to get started because this is a running thing. Hey, Kyla. This is a running thing from last week. Last week, we talked about at the beginning how my husband threw me under the bus on social media because I like to wear his hoodies, and I'm his wife. What his is mine and what's mine is mine, right? But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. Hey, Pam. Adrian, exactly. So he threw me under the bus on social media, and this week he did the same thing. Now let me tell you what happened. There's some context to the story, so if you're coming in, go ahead and say hi. Let me know you're here, but in the meantime, I'm going to share what he did. So he secretly we had a connection Saturday at church, and we were going to be bringing baked goods. And so he had this big thing at church with the day I wasn't there, asking and talking about the fact that he likes chocolate oatmeal raisin cookies more than he likes chocolate chip oatmeal cookies, right? And he had this whole debate on stage, and people raised their hands of which one they liked, boo, and everybody was booing and clapping and all this stuff. And so he tells me, hey, so for this bake thing on Saturday, I want to make oatmeal raisin cookies. So I go as like a good wife. I go get the ingredients to make oatmeal raisin cookies. But guess what? They don't have your girl's not making it from scratch, so let me just say that. But they did not have any ingredients or pre-packaged oatmeal raisin cookies. Now, if you are a baker, don't come at me. I'm just telling you what it is. Like, I didn't have no time to make no cookies from scratch. So, but they only had oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. So I'm like, bet this is gonna have to be good enough, okay? And who doesn't love chocolate chips anyway? I get home and he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you bought oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. Oh my goodness, where are the raisins? And I'm like, baby, they didn't have any raisins. I'm like, if you want, go to the store, get raisins, and I'll sift out the chocolate chip cookies. This is the type of wife I am. I'm willing to take out the chocolate chip cookies out of the oatmeal chocolate chip batter just so that my husband can put raisins in it. Well, anyway, that was a thing. And yes, not from scratch, Robert. Okay. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. But yes, Adrian, go somewhere, okay? Hashtag Judas. So he called me Judas because he says I betrayed him. When in reality, I was just trying to be a good wife, okay? So that being said, if you're coming in, drop your hellos. Let me know where you're watching from. And also, if you're watching, I want to know, are you team oatmeal raisin or are you team oatmeal chocolate chip? So I need to know in the comments, are you team oatmeal raisin or are you team oatmeal chocolate chips? Let that be known in the comments. And I'm going to have to let my husband know that if he keeps putting me out on social media, I am a good wife. Thank you. Thank you so much. He's going to, no, don't laugh. Don't laugh at Judas. That's not funny, Rob. But yes, anyway, so one of the things that I was thinking about today was the idea oatmeal raisin. Candace! Hopefully your hubby is on the same page, because that might be those might be some fighting words in your household. So have you ever avoided eye contact? So I don't know about you, but I know that I have a tendency to avoid eye contact sometimes because it feels a little creepy, especially with somebody that you're not close to, right? Like there's times where like I'll be talking to Adrian and he's doing something else and I just stare at him and he looks back and he's like, why are you staring at me so intently? But eye contact is so powerful. And I don't know if you are an eye contact avoider, but we're going to talk about that before I bring on Derek. Before I do that, we have a couple of things. Spouses are supposed to pick a side. Out here selling me out with a kiss. Listen, let's not break up the household tonight. All right. It's oatmeal raisin or straight chocolate chip. Okay. No, I could do oatmeal with chocolate chip. Camille, hey girl. So good to see you. Yes, oatmeal chocolate chip. But eye contact. So let me tell you, did you know that eye contact has been shown to take up a lot of brain power? So your ability, when you are staring somebody down for whatever reason, whether you're public speaking, whether there is an attraction there, whether you are having a deep conversation, or whether you're angry and you're trying to let them know, like, I'm about to tell you something, you need to pay attention. Regardless of what the reason is, eye contact has been scientifically proven to take up a lot of brain power, so much so that Japanese researchers went ahead and found that when you are intently looking at someone, you have less ability to formulate verbs, to formulate words, and to formulate sentences. And so what they did was they tried to teach their children that in order to concentrate and in order to learn a specific topic, to break eye contact. And so eye contact takes up a lot of brain power. Now, the reason why I'm talking about eye contact is because when we avoid eye contact, which honestly, I did career coaching for several years. And one of the biggest things that I helped teach the people that I coach was how to engage in appropriate levels of eye contact. So when they're sitting with an interviewer, when they're sitting with a recruiter, they're not intimidating the recruiter by like creepily staring at them, or they are coming across as deceitful or as avoidant by not giving any eye contact. And the reality is that as humans, the reason why a lot of us avoid eye contact is because it makes us nervous. It makes us uncomfortable because when we are eyeing somebody down, it's an invitation towards interaction. But this, depending on how confident you are, depending on what your experiences have been, this can increase your anxiety. It can increase your fear. And you almost feel as though if I look at this person, and I let them look at me, they're going to see all of me. They're going to see the truth of what I'm saying, what I'm not saying. So our insecurities cause us to avoid this eye contact. Now, the crazy thing about this, yes, they scared. The crazy thing about this is that eye contact is so important because it has been proven and scientifically researched that it actually allows us to establish an intimate and deep connection with the person we're doing that with. It also increases our concentration. It projects authority and confidence, and it actually shows attention, like we're paying attention, we're actively listening. Now, I'm not just talking about eye contact. I'm going to switch to talking about the avoidance of things that we know we're supposed to do, but are afraid to do it. And the same factors apply, right? When we know we're supposed to be doing something, whether that's because God has called us to do it, whether that's because we know it's the right thing to do, whether that's because it's been on our heart and we just have not been able to get it out of our mind, but we are avoiding it. Oftentimes we're avoiding that thing because of the same reasons, right? We're afraid. We have anxieties about the what if. So what if I fail? What if nobody likes it? What if nobody engages? What if nobody XYZ, fill in the blank. But I read this quote that said, if you aim at nothing, you will get nothing. And so what the reality is that if we are in a space where we are avoiding something that we know we're supposed to be doing, we're forfeiting a deeper connection with God or with the people that we're wanting to do it with. We're forfeiting being more focused, right? We're avoiding walking and doing what we're supposed to be doing. And so today I want to encourage you to be courageous And to face that fear, right? In order to succeed, you have to face your failure. You have to walk in the steps that you need to take. And that may not always be easy, but I want to encourage you, regardless of whether that's a courageous conversation or whether that's something you're supposed to take head on, recognize that there is power in developing that connection, in developing that thing, and in moving towards more purpose and more fulfillment. I see some here. The eyes are the window into the soul. Absolutely. That's why we avoid eye contact. It feels like the person can literally see all of our insecurities. Absolutely. Absolutely. So today I want to encourage us to not avoid, but to embrace and to move forward, to get the things that we've always wanted, but that we will not get by avoiding. So without further ado, I have talked enough. I'm going to bring on tonight's guest, Derrick Williams, on the stage. I need you guys to get all your hand claps ready to show some love to Derrick. Hey, Derrick.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Oh, it's so good to have you on.
Yo, it's good to be here. I just and before you even get started, I can do team chocolate chip or oatmeal. I just wanted to get this out the way, but I can't do them together. That's a sin. They can't be done together.
Listen, that's true though, because like it's like the oatmeal like almost like overpowers the chocolate chip. Yeah. I don't know, at least for me. So I don't know.
For sure.
But no, good to know. Good to know, Derrick. Thank you so much. You've usually been in the chat, encouraging and inspiring not only just our community but also the people sharing. And so I'm so grateful that you get to share today. So, Derrick, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump in.
Born and raised east side of Detroit. That could be a whole story by itself. I'm the youngest of 5, so I was the baby, so I'm a mama's boy, and that kind of permeates throughout all of my life. Sometimes it's annoying because my wife says, "You expect me to be like that," and I used to be like, "No, I don't want you to. I don't know why you keep saying that." And then the longer time went on, I was like, maybe I do expect my mother out of you. Like I had to start expecting that. But youngest of 5. Went to Adventist Academy, 12 years, went away to school, Oakwood, played around, you know what I'm saying? Finally got some sense into myself after the military. And that's when I met you and Adrian at Andrew, went there, got a degree in nursing. And so that's what I'm doing now. Married, 3 daughters, 1 big one, 2 little ones. And my wife is a nurse. And we just trying to get through this thing we call life, one day at a time, and just trying to enjoy it, trying to make it the best that we can make it from here on out. So that's pretty much me, just a regular old guy for the most part.
Right. Well, Derrick, thank you for sharing that. Tell us, Derrick, what's your story?
And that's interesting when you ask that question, because I was telling somebody earlier, that my story is still being written, but it was kind of I guess like in separate parts because of the way my life went. And so like I said, I was born, I was the youngest of 5, and so I was just always on kind of like on my mother's hip. And so my relationship with my mother several years ago played in 2 different ways. Me being the youngest, separated from all my brothers and sisters, that played a significant part in my story. And then also just me, being that close with her, it played a very, very, very important role in my story. And so I guess if I go back and I recap, I would say that I went to Adventist Academy, and in that academy, I saw a lot of people. There were a lot of people that would come through. We'll have different speakers, and of course, growing up in the church, you see a lot of people doing things, or somebody comes week of prayer and they just like blow up the spot or something, or you see somebody, you're like, yo, or you at camp meeting, and then they have a pastor come, you're like, hey, that dude was amazing, and, they get you excited or whatever. But when I was about 15, 16 years old, and they had a guy come out to our school. This was probably about 1996, 1997, something like that. And the guy's name was Eric Thomas. Before, like E.T. the hip hop preacher, and before Dr. Eric Thomas, it was like Eric Thomas. And, he was a lot younger. And when he came to our school to speak, it was amazing. Everybody was like, yo, who's this dude? He's kicking it to us, like, so, in a way that we can understand it. And so naturally, yo, how can I get down with that guy? I want to do what he's doing. And I thought about it, and then it just passed. And then a little while after that, my Bible teacher named Calvin Tate, who played a very significant part in just kind of like, I guess, guiding and directing me and kind of developing a gift. He played a significant part too. So Calvin Tate was our Bible teacher, and he was trying to put together a week of prayer. And he came and said something to me, and I was, like 16, I think, at the time, and I'm like, dude, I don't know who you're talking about. He's like, yo, Derek, your friends listen to you. They listen to you. You should be a speaker on this week of prayer. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm clowning. That's why they listen to me, because I crack good jokes. I'm funny. I get people laughing. That's why he's like, no, you're a leader, man. People listen to you. You have an influence. And I think you should do this. And I'm like, no, I don't, I don't know. I don't know about that. And then, he was like, yeah, you. And there was another friend of ours. And then a guy named Dwayne Duncombe that went to our school, who went on to become a pastor. And Dwayne is a good friend of mine from like way back. And for him, we knew that he was going to be, doing that, speaking or whatever. And so for me, it was just like, no, that's just not what I want to do. So he kept talking to me. He was like, I'm telling you, God has a calling on your life. I can feel it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I tell everybody that when you're trying to get them to do something that you want them to do. Growing up, the way we grew up in church, they tell, as soon as somebody try to get you to do something, they use those words or certain scriptures to, get your behavior to go down the path they want to go. So I'm like, yeah, okay, dude. So he stayed on me, and finally I said, okay, I'll do it. And so it was just a school week of prayer. And then one of the teachers after that came to me, and they were like, hey, I was really blessed by, what you said and what happened there. And I want you to speak at the Youth Federation, Friday night service for Youth Federation. And I'm like, no, like, no, what is wrong with y'all? That's not what I want to do. Right. And so they were like, no, I think, the young people really need to hear from you. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So then my grandmother dies. And at this point, I'm starting to listen to people and be like, is this something that I'm supposed to be doing? Because I started to reflect, well, when that guy came to my school, I did want to go, go with him and go to other places and speak. I did. That is something that I wanted to do. Yeah. And so I started, wondering, like, is this something that, that I should do? Because people keep telling me they see something. Should I do it? I'm like, I don't know, And so went down to South Carolina. My grandmother died, and we were at the funeral, and they asked me to say something at her funeral. They're like, well, yeah, your mother told us. I'm like, Mom, why you come down here telling people, all like, chill out. I'm just trying to see my cousins.
Good and
your mother told us this, and this is at the viewing, just like the family out of viewing it. And they're like, why don't you say a few words? And I'm like, I don't know what to say, So I went ahead and said something, and then all of the family is just like, yo, man, that was really comforting. We really were blessed by that. We appreciate you doing that. And I'm like, okay. And so the next day the funeral, happens. And so now I'm starting to be like, okay, God, like, for real, what's going on? And I remember it like it was yesterday. We were riding from the funeral actually to the cemetery, to the burial site. And I'm just like kind of sitting there. I'm leaning my head on the window, and I'm looking at the signs, and there's a billboard that says, what does it take for God to get your attention? And I'm like, nah, that's coincidence. Like, no, that's not, I'm not going there. So it started getting to me, and I was like thinking about it a lot. And so I finally, when I got back into Detroit, I, called a couple of people and said, hey, I need to get that guy's number, Eric's number. He was down in Huntsville at the time. And I had already knew that I was going to Oakwood. It was like my, I think this was my senior year. So I already knew that I was going to Oakwood, and he was down in Huntsville. So I'm calling him. And got in trouble a couple of times because this was, this was before long distance was just, for everybody. So I'm calling. Mom saw the phone bills. What in the world is going on? Who are you calling? And in Alabama, so I'm kind of calling. I'm like, let me go ahead and just tell her what's up. So then she listened to me. I finally got in touch with him. We started talking. He was like, I'm coming home to go speak at a church, in Flint. Flint is about an hour, 15-minute drive from Detroit. He was like, I'm gonna come pick you up. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. Because he, to me, I'm like, wow, this dude gonna come pick me up. And so he came, pick me up. We rode out to the church, and then he was like, before I get up, I want you to speak, for a few minutes. And I was like, whoa, what I'm saying? I didn't think it was gonna happen like this. I ain't prepared, whenever I was speaking before, I'm like, I had a whole lot of time, So he let me say a few words there, and then afterwards, after the service, we went over to some people's house for dinner. And after dinner, again, everybody that was there, and these people my age now, they like, yo, man, like that was nice. I was, I really, that really made me think about, A, B, and C, and this, and that. And I'm like, wow, and then that kind of a pastor preach. I don't really be wanting to hear him, man. I wish you was here. I wish you could come speak every week. And I'm like, hold up, like, hold on, one second.
You're moving
So
too fast.
I something that was really big that happened was growing up, my father, which it bothered me, of course, a whole lot when I was younger, which I understood once I got older and I became a husband and a father myself. My father would, he would drink. And sometimes he would drink sometimes pretty heavily. And it was like this for years. And so I'm down in Oakwood now and I'm with Eric. And we go to the school, Johnson High School. And these are things that are significant. That's why I remember the details, because I got to give you all of this so you can see how the rest of the story unfolds.
Yes.
So J.O. Johnson High School, I remember it like yesterday. This was 1998, and I remember it like it just happened. The guy's name was Mr. Shipman, who we were going over to the school to speak for. And the school was on alert because they weren't performing, and they were getting ready to get taken over by the state. And they were like, that was just like the worst for anybody. No, we don't want to be taken over by the state. And so Eric said, we're going over here, but since you're a freshman, so you're closer to their age, why don't you speak? And then if you speak to them, then they'll probably listen to you a little more. I was like, all right, cool. So we go over there. I get my my little thing together, and he was like, I just want to introduce you to somebody who he from Detroit, this and that. And so down in Huntsville at that time, he blowing me up, and they like, yo, he from Detroit, so they like listening, like, so afterwards people ask me, do you go outside at nighttime? I'm like, yeah, what kind of question is that? You know what I'm saying? So when I started speaking to him or whatever, I guess he knew that they would listen because of that, because it's small town. They looking like Detroit, so I just started telling him a couple of things that I had experienced, things that I dealt with, and how I still just, I was determined to graduate from school. Neither one of my parents had graduated high school, and so I just told them that why I was determined to do it for my mother, like for real, graduate and then go to college. And so I just told them, overcame a couple of things, and I'm down here now. So they were just like, really like, wow. So I think Eric was just trying to help me out and put me on. But I guess God really, really just did something in the classroom, because when we left, we were out in the parking lot, and he was, talking. But then when we got outside, his eyes just blew up, and he was like, bruh, you just killed it in there, man. And I'm like, what? He was like, these kids don't listen to nobody like that. He was like, they don't listen. He's like, they were quiet. Like, they were super quiet. Like, they don't listen to anybody like that, man. He was like, and so he was like, you got a gift, man. He was like, I think there's an anointing on you. You got to use that gift. And I'm like, here he go. You know what I'm saying? I just want to do what you're doing. I wasn't talking about a gift or no anointing or, anything like that. And so I go back to my room and I'm praying that night. And I'm like, God, is this some way that I'm supposed to be doing this? Is this something that you want me to do as far as influencing people, or is this a gift? Is this something you gave me? Because I love doing it. You know what I'm saying? But is it actually a gift? And if it is, I was like, and back then I'm like, I don't even know if I should be doing this, but if you really want me to use this, I've been praying for years for my father to stop drinking. You know what I'm saying? Can you please, like, just have him stop drinking, like, give me a sign, do something. And I had been praying since I was a kid. And then I got to the point where it was a couple of times with my mother, we had conversations where, I said, it's no use of praying no more. He ain't gonna stop.
Wow.
Like, that's kind of where I was like, he's not gonna stop, And so all these years, I finally got on my freshman year at Oakwood. I have this encounter, and then I'm in my room that night and I'm praying. And it wasn't even like a week and a half later, I talked to my mother. She's like, your father stopped drinking and smoking.
What?
And I was like, what? And so I'm like, what's going on? I was like, what do you mean he stopped drinking much? She was like, yeah, he just stopped overnight. And I was like, what? So years later, when I talked to him, this is crazy. Years later, when I talked to him about it, he said, because I wanted to know what happened, because I remember that I prayed that prayer and I had, told God, that's what you want me to do, then do this for me, please. And so he said, I was sick. And I went to the doctor or whatever, because I was like really feeling sick, and they had done some x-rays and they said, we see something in your chest. You might need to like lay off of the smoking They didn't say anything to him about drinking. They said, you might need to lay off of the smoking and everything, because he smoked cigarettes, a lot. And he was like, you might need to lay off of that because until we find out what's going on. My father, old school from down south, one of the old school dudes, ain't going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. It's my
Right.
life.
Exactly.
And so he said that he came home and my mother left to go do something and nobody was there because I'm the youngest. So all my brothers and sisters were gone. Nobody was at the house. He'd go upstairs in his room where he usually chill. And he was like, went and poured him a drink, got his cigarette. He's smoking a cigarette, watching TV. And he said he just started like coughing and he was choking. And he said he really felt like he hadn't coughed like that he felt like he was about to, like that was about to be it.
Wow.
And he had wanted to stop drinking several times just because of issues that it caused, family problems, this and that, whatever.
Yes.
But this time he said he felt like, he was trying to call somebody. He knew nobody was in the house, in there. And so he went to the classic thing. God, if you get me out of this one, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you give me, and he said he remembered saying that if you let me breathe,
wow,
I'm gonna stop drinking and smoking. And the way he told me the story was he just felt whatever pressure, like an elephant standing on his chest, he felt it lift up.
Wow.
And that's what he knew. He was like, that's it. He said he had a carton of cigarettes. He gave them away. He said he had his Crown Royal was his thing. He had his Crown Royal. He went and poured it out. And cold turkey after years and years.
Wow.
He just stopped drinking and smoking. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, this might be something. So fast forward to the following year, I'm starting to do a little bit of stuff on campus down at Oakwood. And, especially when you at that 18 and you're on campus, anything that you do, you trying to be the man. You know what I'm saying? Like you trying to make a name for yourself. You trying to be remembered. And so, I'm starting to feel myself just a little bit, like, yeah, they asking me to come do this. Okay, I'm about to go speak over here. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Let's go do it. I got this.
Right.
And so then people start coming with you need to do theology. I'm like, that's the most, for those who might not, I don't know who's all listening, but that's like, to me, that's the most Adventist thing ever. You go speak somewhere, oh, you need to go into the ministry. I'm like, that's not, tell God, send me that.
I would say that's church period, like church folk period. Like you can speak, you're going to be a pastor.
Right. I'm just like, I was like, that's just not me. I was like, I didn't get that memo, So a couple of things happen. I go again with Eric. And this is one of the things that really changed for me because this is somebody that I admire, right?
Yeah.
And somebody that I look up to that to me, I'm like, that's where I want to be. And so he calls me and says, hey, I have a week of prayer in Florida, but I can't finish it. Can you I'm going to fly you down. Can you finish this? Because I got to go to New Jersey and then come to New Jersey with me. I'm 18 at the time. I'm like, sure. You know what I'm saying? He was like, and then, he told me the figures and everything that was going to be involved. I'm like, shoot, yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm living off refund checks, bro. Of course I'll do it. So I go down and we do Florida. And then when we finally get back to Huntsville, this is one of the things that changed and started pulling me down that direction. He set me down and he said, listen, man, he said, it's a lot of people want to roll with me. He said, there are a lot of people that want to do things with me and they go with me, but you are the first person that has ever gone somewhere with me. And when we left, they asked about you. He said, they forget anybody that's with me. Nobody asks, can this person come back and do this? They don't ask about anybody, but they called from Florida and they asked about you and said, when can you come back? And he said, and I'm telling you that he said, because from here on out, it's between you and God. You know what I'm saying? He was like, there's a lot of guys out here that can speak. He said, there's some guys out here that can sing. He was like, but when you're doing the double, when you hit them with the singing and the speaking, he was like, I don't think a lot of people ready for that in the arenas that we go into, like some of the schools. He was like, people do it in church, because there's some talented people out here. He was like, but when we go into the schools and things, he was like, when you start singing, he was like, you can see the anointing just come over the room. So this is still like a lot, like at that time, it's somebody giving me nuggets that I don't even appreciate. It's I'm still not getting it. And so I leave all of that stuff alone because I left Oakwood like 2 years later, come back to Detroit and start dating. And, when I started dating, now I'm speaking at churches and things too. And because of the nature of the relationship that I had, I started feeling guilty And I was like, I can't go be doing preaching, like, doing my thing out here and then still, trying to do stuff at church. And so I was like, I can't do it. And so I turned away from it. I stopped
Wow.
doing it because I was just like, the way I was raised, like my conscience was just getting to me. And I was like, I can't be, I even probably look fake to her. So after that, end up, I ended up getting married, ended up joining the Air Force, went over to Italy. And then when I was in Italy, I ended up in Iraq. And when I was in
Wow.
Iraq, I'm like, where did I go wrong here? You know what I'm saying? Like I was on
Like
a
a moment
path
of reflection.
where, like, yeah, I'm like, I was on a path where
Wow.
things were like great. I was with my friends. And then I'm over there, and I wasn't even in the area in Iraq that was like just like a bad area, but for me it was bad enough. The attacks that we
Yeah.
got with the rockets and mortars and things like that. There were a few times that I said, and my daughter Paris is born at the time. She's 2. And it was enough that was happening at the time that I was like, I may not get home. I was like, I was scared, kind of like, what if I don't get home to see, and
Right.
I was there in 2000. Was it 2007? And to this day on my phone, I still have the playlist that I made while like while I was over there, and I still listen to them.
Yes.
I'm like, ooh, and
Throws you
so
back.
Iraq was one of those times where I did that what my father did, that classic thing. Hey, if you let me get out of here, as soon as I get out of that, you let me get home from Iraq. When I get back, I'm gonna be obedient. I'm gonna do what you want me to do because I've been here with you several times. And when I get back, when I get out of the Air Force, I'm not doing a career. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna figure out what you want me to do. So I get back from Iraq, and I'm like, whoo, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Like and so when I get back from Iraq though, my marriage is kind of like a little tricky. It's some challenges and some things that that were going on. And so I end up getting a new assignment. And when I leave, I end up heading down to Oklahoma. I leave Italy and go to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm in Oklahoma, um, divorce comes up in the picture.
Wow.
And this is where everything kind of like, this is where I understood my whole life was in the midst of this divorce. So I'll give this to you quickly. Again, growing up in the church, a divorce was like, it's a failure,
Yeah.
because of the way we think it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah.
I don't want to face anybody. I'm embarrassed. You know what I'm saying? Especially because of the nature of my divorce. And it's just like, I'm embarrassed. I feel, like I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk. And then
Yeah.
up until this point, all of my life, because of where I was raised, like I say, East Side, Detroit, up until this point, where I'm from, we've always told people that um, you are, you whack or you weak if you're trying to commit suicide. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
that's what we, that was our thing. That was always. And so, at that point, my mother knew that something was wrong. One of my friends came down. And when my friend came down, he ended up pretty much like holding me in his arms. I was hurt. I was, like I'm like out of it. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on with me. I'm losing weight all around my neck, everything. And my mother, that she says to me that I know that you're in a bad place. I know that
Hmm.
something's going on. I know that that something's not right with you, and so I want to tell you something. You're the youngest,
Hmm.
and you were separated from your brothers and sisters because we were done having children.
Hmm.
And I had an issue with just birth control. She said back then your parent, your husband had to sign off on the papers for you to get your tubes tied. And so they never revisited that. They never revisited that. And so by the
Hmm.
time they came around, because my brothers, they're all together, and my sisters, I'm 7 years down the road.
Uh-huh.
And so she said we were done. She said we were done having kids. When you, what happened with you is I had an issue with birth control. I forgot just a couple of days and then found out that I was pregnant with you. And so she said, and
Wow.
so in the middle of the pregnancy, about 4 or 5 months in the pregnancy, she said, because we did not want any more kids. She said, I remember kneeling down on the floor in the kitchen and putting my hand on my belly, and I said,
Oh, wow.
God, we didn't want any kids, but I'm gonna give this one to you. And she said, can you please, like bless this child, do something special with him? And I
Mm.
was like, okay. So then she said to me, she said, and I know you're in a bad place. And I was right on the edge of, like just in that suicidal spot.
Wow.
And it got to the point that I literally was like not eating, like nothing. And what she said to me changed my
Mm.
life. She said, Derek, your purpose is so much greater in the
Mm.
situation that you find yourself in right now. That
Yes.
your purpose is so much greater than the situation that you're in right now. And I said, "Whoa, so you weren't having me? You told God do something special, like you gave." And she was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "And everywhere I go, people are always coming up to me saying, when your son said A, B, and C, and she said, that's not you. When you said things, people remember,
Mm.
that's not you, that's God. That's because I asked God to do something special with you." And she was like, "And that's
Wow.
what you're supposed to be doing." So I'm like, wow. So then I was like, okay. I get out the Air Force. I'm going to school. I'm gonna do so. My first day, right? My first
Mhm.
day out of the Air Force, I call Andrews and I'm like, I got this money for school. I'm still on leave. Actually, I drive up to the campus. I'm still on leave. I'm like, I
Wow.
just packed my car, left the Air Force. I didn't unpack it when I got to Detroit. I spent the holidays there, and when I did, I was like, okay, this is it's time for me to come up there, holler at y'all, and then I'm gonna see y'all a little later because I
You're
got
coming
something
back.
to do.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when my
yeah, yeah,
mother
yeah.
says your purpose is greater than anything that than your situation, I start vibing with that, and I was like, I'm gonna start a company, and that's what it's gonna be about. Is just
Mm.
inspiring and getting people into their purpose or whatever. And so, what happened is I'm still like scared because I'm like, people gonna say stuff. They're gonna say something crazy. So now I haven't seen Eric in years.
Wow.
Eric is like, yo, I'm up in Lansing. When you gonna come see me? You back in the States? I'm like, yeah, no doubt. So I drive up there to see him. He like, yeah, we come up for church, for church service, this, and that. I'm like, okay. And we have been talking, but I hadn't seen him. So I walk into
Mhm.
church. I drive up there, I walk in, and as soon as I walk in, I'm like just looking for a seat. And he's like, yo, my man Lil D, because that's what they all called me, because I was like the smallest dude, you know what I'm saying? Like out of all of them, like I was just so little because they were all like 10 years older than me. He like, my man Lil D in the back, he gonna come up and say a few words and sing a song. And I'm like, what? Like, dude, I have I'm just trying to come in and sit down and chill out. And so I go up, sing a song, speak afterwards. Me and him, we keep talking, and he was like, hey, you getting older, man. And I still feel like
Mm.
God has an anointing on your life. And he was like, but the older you
Mm.
get, potential is not cute anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I
Mm.
see where we're going with this. He was like, yeah. He said potential cute at 18. He was like, but when you're grown and you got mouths to feed, he was like potential not cute. He was like, and
Mercy,
God,
Lord.
he said God got some stuff that he wanted to do with you. And then he I ended up getting some letters from way back when we went to Milwaukee. There were some letters from a girl's home that we went to, and he showed me an envelope full of these letters that they wrote, and most of them were
Mm.
based on when I spoke to them. Of course, I didn't remember what I said, but when I was reading
Sure.
it, when I read it, I said, "That's God." I said, "That's God," because I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I
Mm.
can't do
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
know I
yeah,
couldn't do
yeah.
that at 18 and 19. I know I couldn't do it. And so the things that were happening to people as a result of what God was trying to do through me made me
Right.
realize, okay, Derek, this is what you need to do. Whether you're scared of what people are going to say, because that was one of the things, is that when I would do something, the people that would say something negative, I gave them more resonance in my head than the people that said they were blessed by it. And so
Mm.
then I
Mm.
said, well,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do a video because not social media star. I'm gonna do
Yes.
a video just to do this and see what happens. And I put the video out, and the video like take off. And I'm like, well, maybe I should
Mm.
start putting out some content. This is like several years ago. And so I started doing it. And then people are still like, oh, you just trying to be like Eric. You know what I'm saying? Because
Of
that's your boy.
course.
You just trying to be like him. And I'm like, and I
Right.
let that get to me. What I didn't follow was the emails that were coming for engagements, because they said
Mm.
our students need to hear you. You know what I'm saying? Our students,
Ah.
We want you to come. Can you come do? That's not what I'm paying attention to. I'm paying attention to the negativity.
Right.
So
Mercy,
I'm
God.
still tripping. I'm still, like kind of like not. And so finally, I get to the point where um, I stopped doing stuff. Right. I stopped putting content out. I stopped doing things. And then I have a situation where before COVID happens,
Mm-hmm.
I get a phone call from a friend that I went to school with years ago, and he was like, "Hey man, you still doing your thing? Um, I want to talk to you because we have a district out in Maryland that, we really could use use your help to do." And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So then he talks to me, and what they were saying they wanted for the students is exactly what I wanted to do. And so for me, I'll be
Mm.
honest with you, initially what caught me was the figure that they offered. And I was like,
Mm.
whoa, for real? Okay, let's talk. But then this is what got me. When I was talking to her, she said, I looked and I saw a lot of your stuff, but then I saw that you hadn't put any content out or you didn't have anything for 2 years. And
Mercy.
so I almost didn't call you because I thought that you weren't doing it anymore. So Leilani, at
Wow.
that point, I said, my fear is keeping food off the table. My fear is keeping a
Woo.
different lifestyle away from my children.
Woo.
You know what I'm saying? Like like I have to. That's something that I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
end up
yeah, yeah,
having
yeah,
to
yeah,
fix
yeah.
or address. So eventually, I get to the point where um, I just start fasting and praying, and I'm like, okay, God, if this is what you want, then show me. And the phone rang the next day, and another
Mm.
really nice contract comes, but the money wasn't what was attractive this time. It was that the
Mm.
person specifically wanted me because of something that he saw and something that he said that I did that he wanted his students to be exposed to. And that's when I was like, okay, God, now
This is
now it's
it.
time for me to be obedient. Now it's time for me to realize that nursing, because I did nursing as a career and I was leaning on that. And he started to show me the worst thing that could have happened to you was for you to start making a nice living off of nursing because you're starting to depend on that instead of
Mercy,
depending
God.
on me. And so now
Mm.
I'm at the point where God has showed me nursing there's such a short shelf life on it if you're obedient. But don't be obedient
Mm.
35% of the time and then you try to control the other
Mm.
65% because nothing works that way. And so now
Mercy,
he's finally
Lord.
showing me like, stop living a compartmentalized life and
Woo.
start going out here and influencing these students. So I've got a couple of things that are on a burner now. I thank you for this, what you're doing, because Crystal said something on the first season when she said your voice is assigned to a group of people.
Woo.
That inspired me to start going
Yes.
out. And I started buying equipment to start like just getting my content the way that I wanted to go.
Yes.
I might need to buy better equipment because I don't know what happened to my camera.
Oh,
But
okay.
um, I might need to we'll figure that out on another day. But where I am now, it's still being developed, and I'm just so thankful because God is finally showing me that people are gonna hate you. They're gonna dislike you.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, 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 yeah,
people,
yeah,
people,
yeah.
and I'm a huge Steph Curry fan, and I'm like, Steph Curry's the perfect athlete. People
Yes.
don't like him, so they're not gonna like
Right.
you. They're not gonna like
Never.
everything you
Yeah,
do.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
now, where my story is, Leilani, is that um, several opportunities that are coming, emails, phone calls, some stuff that I thought was going to be really big and then it fell apart again. And I'm just taking it as God is showing me that um, what if just because the number is big that I'm still trying to teach you when to say no. You know what I'm saying? What
Right,
if
right,
I'm
right,
trying to
right,
show
right.
you like how to come to me for
Mm-hmm.
everything and learn how to
Yes.
say no? And so now
Yes.
I said, God, I realize that there's a possibility that I have
Mm.
lived longer than I have left, and I want to be
Mm.
obedient.
Woo.
I definitely want to be obedient because
Yes.
with my oldest daughter, I wasn't able to provide growing up. I wasn't able to give her, and I'm just talking about lifestyle now. I wasn't able to
Yeah.
do for her what I really like, what I wanted to.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to be able to provide for my family what I want. And then I also want to be just, at peace in my head that that I'm in
Mm.
alignment and that I'm being obedient and I'm doing what you want me to do. And once I started doing that,
Yes.
Leilani, the engagement started coming. Sometimes it's still like, well, when is the
Mm.
next thing? Where is it coming? But there are so many things that are happening now that let me rest in knowing that I'm in line. And so my story is still building as the company's purpose is
Yes.
greater, is growing. There are still some opportunities that are out there that I missed because I was scared, because I wasn't doing what I was
Mm.
supposed to be doing, and I let fear I let fear keep me,
Whoop.
fear of failing, fear of other people's opinions,
Yes.
fear of comparison. It's funny because I tell my daughter, stop looking on that social media stuff and comparing yourself to other people. That's not real. And then I turn around and I'm doing the same thing. Like somebody gonna say your stuff ain't nice enough. Somebody gonna say you're not sweet. And I start
Mercy.
realizing, and when I did it, I was like,
Yes.
people did do that. And so now
Yes.
I'm accepting the good stuff and I'm focusing on that. And God is like, we have a path now. Now I have your ear.
Yes.
We have a path. And I'm going
Yes.
to start showing you little by little um, how if you depend on me, what we're going to do with this gift. Not what you're going to do with it, but what we're going to do with this gift. And so even
Yes.
recently, I went to speak to some kids, and one of the young men came up to me, and just what he shared with me as a testimony as a result of what happened, it just blew my mind because I was like, that's so God. You know what I'm saying? Like that's so God. So that's where it is now. Just starting to be obedient, building the company. I'm trying to get in more schools. Church is called to do some things, and I
Yes.
still feel like I have to be obedient to that as well. But my passion is definitely group homes, detention centers, schools in underserved
Yes. So
areas.
needed.
Where I can speak to people coming from a home that experienced some things that they experienced, and then also with the advantage of a lot of speakers are going to schools, but not a lot of them have the cheat code of going in with the Holy Spirit. You know what I'm saying? Some people
Yes.
are like that. They're like, yo, man, you that was amazing, man. It was just like so different. I'm like, yeah, I can't say God, but that's who did it. You know what I'm saying? And then,
Yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah,
when a
yeah.
student says, "Are you a Christian?" Because then I can do it, and I tell the teacher, "Hey, they asked." You know what I'm saying? So I have to answer the question. And then
Right,
you're able
right.
to speak to that a little more. So that's where I am now, just growing,
Wow.
being obedient, and really, really, really trying to
To
just
walk
trying to
in
just trying to
yeah.
change as many lives, affect as many lives as I can,
Yes,
because somebody did it for
yes.
me, and I know how important it was. And I
Mm,
probably wouldn't have left Detroit if it wasn't for that individual that showed me that there was something outside of my
something
immediate neighborhood.
more.
Yeah,
Ooh, that is so powerful.
yeah,
Derek, man, it's so powerful and so encouraging for me. For those of you in the chat, if you have any questions, this is the moment where you can hashtag question, and we'll have Derek answer some of those.
for sure.
But it's so encouraging for me because I completely understand what you're talking about. I think all of us can relate to being afraid of doing something, right? Having fear of failure, having fear of someone judging us, right? Or not appreciating, yay, you're back. What'd you
Yeah, I don't
do?
know what that was. Maybe I got scared and I cut it off on purpose. I'll never tell.
Listen, listen. No, no, no. But it's so relatable, and it encourages us, I think, also to, and encourages me to also make sure that I'm staying where God wants me to stay.
Right.
Okay? So I guess my question for you is, as a result of your story and the collective experiences that you've had, you've been inspired to lean into this, to what you've been called from the time you were a teen, right? And like we see it, how it happened all these years. Well, I'm gonna ask you a different question tonight, and what I want to ask you is, what would you, what kind of encouragement could you give to someone who's listening, who can resonate with what you're experiencing? They feel like God has been asking them to do something, and they've been avoiding it, or they've been running from it, or they're just like, oh, I don't know. What would you say based on the fact that you are living in this, you're
Mhm.
walking this right now?
Um, for me, and I can only
Mm-hmm.
speak to what I did
Yeah.
and what had happened. I did pray. Matthew 6 is, and I just preached on this yesterday. Actually, I forgot to tell you that at my church. And Matthew 6 has been something that has stuck with me for a long time. In that it just said, praying, fasting, and giving. And if you do these things, nothing will be impossible to you. And once I started actually understanding the power of praying and fasting together, and then I added giving to it, something again that I learned from my
Ooh.
mentor. He was like, if you give, he was like, the more you give, the more God gives to you because he trusts you to bless others. And so I
That's
started
good.
putting the fasting and the praying and the giving together. And then I could hear that voice like so clear. And so another thing is that I got to the point where I asked God, I said, I'm gonna sell out for you. And then this is just, again, something that I do.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be like, God, in 10 days, can you show me? And some people are like, you can't negotiate with God. You can't do this. And I'm like, no, you can't negotiate. Don't tell me how my relationship operates. You know what I'm saying? Don't tell.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's always been something that before I really got that really, really good understanding of
Yeah.
how I operate in the confines of, like obedience. Like I learned to be obedient. I had to ask God, well, can you show me? And, like in 10 days, I'm going to be praying. I'm gonna be fasting. I'm gonna find somebody to help. And I just feel like those things get you so close to God when you do them together,
Yes.
because he
Yes.
required them of us in that greatest sermon that was ever preached, that when you do them,
Mm-hmm.
your hearing you're not confused if it's God or not, or if it's your own personal
Yes.
desire. Um,
Yes.
you're not confused with when somebody else tells you, I think this is what you're supposed to
Yes.
be doing. It just becomes so clear that this is me, this is what I want from you. And what happened is, for me, and I can guarantee it'll happen for others, once I started being obedient, stuff started happening for me that I wasn't even earning, if that makes sense. Things that I wasn't even trying to get started just falling in my lap. And they
Yes.
just started. And I was like, I should have made that turn a long time ago. This was the
Ooh.
street that I was supposed to be going
Yeah, yeah,
down
yeah,
right
yeah, yeah.
here. And so if they're like, I don't know, or I'm running, I don't, obedient, I don't know if I want to praying, fasting, and giving, and start asking, just be clear. And I told God that I'm not the
Yes.
smartest dude in the room. So be clear to me, because I ain't that deep. Let me know in plain English what you want me to do, so I can follow.
Simple.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Listen, I want to jump on that bandwagon because I think you're absolutely right. One of the biggest ways that we have seen God move in our life, Adrian and I's life, has been times where we are seeking God for something very specific, and
Hmm.
we have this practice where we pray and fast, and we have a timeline. We give them 7 days. Like,
Hmm.
listen, God, I'm open to do whatever you absolutely want in this situation,
Yeah.
but I'm giving you 7 days. But I need to hear a word from you, and it's been so powerful in my life to witness God honor that, right? Because
Yeah.
we're seeking, because we're knocking, we're actually, like, we are just completely surrendered to whatever his will is. And
Hmm.
so I love that you said that, because I think that a lot of us, and I've done this before too, but we pray and fast, but it's kind of like, okay, God, just you know no, like, what are you expecting from him, right? Like, what is
Hmm.
it that you want from him? And he says, ask and it will be given to you, right?
Yep.
So I'm
Yep.
asking. So I love that you said that, and I think you're absolutely right. And I loved the part about giving, because you're absolutely right. I think about capacity, right? God is not going to
Hmm.
bless you with something that you don't have the capacity to actually put forth, right? And
Yep.
so you develop that by giving and by creating space. So
Absolutely.
there's a question. What did God teach you in the military that benefits your ministry now?
Wow, that's actually a good question, because it was something that I did forget. So in the Air Force, something that I guess, because they beat it into your head, like there are three core values. Like each branch of service has their theme, or their aim, or their goals, or whatever. And
Yeah.
for the Air Force, one of them was, believe it or not, as a Christian, I was like, man, I don't like hearing that, service before self. And
Hmm.
it has, when I really started to think about what that was, again, because my mentor, the same guy, he would always be saying, hey, when you go somewhere, you just lift as much of the load as you can. He was like, so if we would be somewhere, for instance, on the road, and somebody invites us to their house for dinner, he's like, yo, let's go in there and do the dishes, let's take the garbage out, let's do this, let's do that. What I'm saying? He was like,
Wow.
that way they're inviting us to their home, we're not a you're not a burden. That's how people just they remember. That's what they remember. What I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
The
yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that
The
that you do
service.
to lift their load. And so we go to school. If we go to a school or something, and the janitor's cleaning up, he's like, "Let's go help my man flip the tables and do this." And so when I'm younger, I'm like, "What?" But then when I hit the Air Force, and they're like, I'm a little older, and then I'm like, "Oh, service before self, like service before
Mm.
self, service before self." It taught me now in what I'm doing that um, there are times that you have to be able to use your gift. You have to be able to be obedient to God. Use your energy, your time, your efforts. You
Mm.
have to be able to do those things sometimes without an expectation of anything in return. And
Mm.
what I found is, and especially at least from where I was raised and the environment that I was around,
Yeah.
people are allergic when you say the word volunteer or free, for anything. And so what I've learned is that sometimes those situations where you have to give service before you're thinking about yourself. Sometimes some of my
That's
biggest
good.
blessings have come from people who are in the room. Sometimes some of the biggest
Mm.
impacts that God has made on people's lives by using me was in those rooms where I wasn't
Yeah.
even thinking about personal gain. And so the military definitely
Wow.
showed me that service is definitely important for before self and without
Yes.
expectation. Sometimes without expectation of anything, just do what you're supposed to do
Yeah.
and then go home and go to bed.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Derek, thank you so much
Mhm,
for being willing to share your story and being vulnerable with us. I do want you to know that I am going to pull up your website here.
mhm.
But if you want to know more about Derek and what he's doing and how God is moving in his life and stay up to date with where he's at and his content, go to purposeisgreater.com. I got that right, Derek?
Yep.
Purposeisgreater.com. We will make sure that it's in the link below,
Mhm.
and you guys can connect with him there. But I'm so grateful for how God has been using you and how he's continued to use you. And I just want to say thank you to you before I let you go, because when I started season 1, like about 3 to 4 episodes, I remember just having the same experience. Like God, I believe that this is something God wanted me to do and wants me to do, but I was battling with all those same fears. And every single week I felt like I needed him to baby me. I was like, God, I need you to continue to confirm that this is what you want me to continue to
Right.
do. And you were one of those people, because you called me. You were like, hey, I need 2 seconds of your time. And you called me and you just poured into me and you inspired me and you just affirmed what God was doing. And I'm just so grateful for you and for doing that, because it was one of my answers to prayer during that
Mhm.
journey. So I'm just so grateful, and I'm praying for you that God continues to show you the way that he wants you to go, and that you can be confident in him that what he's given you is going to come to pass. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so thank you, Derek. I'm going to send you backstage and I'll see you in a
All right.
second. Okay, see ya. Guys, I just want to remind you, thank you so much, Derek. Yep, we got some Detroit people repping in the house. um, but I want to remind you that I believe that God has given each one of you something to do, right? He's called you to do something. And so many times, just like we heard Derek share, we minimize the anointing and the calling that God has put on our lives and the giftedness, because we are afraid, because we feel insecure, because maybe we feel like, well, no one's going to care. Well, listen, I just want to remind you, based on Derrick's story and based on that good old mother wisdom, that your purpose is greater than your situation, and that you have influence because God says it. And if he's calling you to do something, he's going to give you everything that you need in order to accomplish that very thing. And so I'm encouraging you to surrender. I'm encouraging you to pray. I'm encouraging you to trust that he's already where he wants you to go. So you don't have to fear. You do not have to fear. I want to remind you, as always, that you can support What's Your Story by subscribing to Leilani Langdon YouTube page, where you can see all of the past episodes from season 2 and season 1. You can share after we're done here. Go ahead and share this live on whatever platform you want to share it on and support that way. You can also donate financially to What's Your Story Live on Cash App to help us continue to grow. So, but ultimately, I just want to remind you that purpose is found in knowing, owning, and sharing your story. And so the question is, are you ready to share yours? See you next week.